So when my bad German was corrected, I would often initially I took it as kind of harsh or direct, but it's being helpful by being clear in their communication often when they're helping you and helping you improve.
Very true.
Yeah. I mean, in that sense, I mean, just covering that topic, I mean, just an experience. I mean, personally, I was never able to achieve it because I tried to be very direct with my wife when we moved to Germany. Never worked. I still stayed the polite Pratik from India. So I kept that going. But professionally, I would say definitely this becomes such a confusing factor because when you are dealing with different cultures, right? When you go back to India and like Richa said, you adapt to it, you absorb it. And one thing which I always keeping in my mind, be careful of changing your attitude when you move to different cultures because you got to adapt to it. But of course, the German in you comes in, and then one day, I mean, just a small example, very quickly. When I was in India with one of my team members, and I was hoping nobody asks me for a feedback on themselves, and I was literally getting to leave the office, and one guy just walked up and said, "Hey, Pratik, what do you think about my performance in the last 6 months?" I was like, "Oh my God, why did you ask me this?" And while I was literally leaving the office, I said, "Look, your performance has been miserable. You haven't been able to cover up on certain topics. You haven't been able to do this, A, B, and C," giving examples. And I could see his face color change because he never expected that. It was more like, "Oh, but there's scope of improvement. You're getting there. You're not there yet." And after I got into the car, when I left the office, I was like, wait a second, why did I do that to the poor guy? I mean, I should have been more culturally adaptable, but I didn't. But it's just you adapt to the culture and you become the person where you live. So I think there is pros and cons both. But again, I would also agree with Richa. This culture, which it teaches you, and again, I'm not saying that Indian culture is wrong.
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
there. German culture is what it is here. But like she said, there's a mixed message which you completely miscommunicate to people, which can be dangerous. Because
Yeah.
when you're seeing that it's not happening, it's better to say it's not happening rather than saying it might happen. Because in the meanwhile, as a company, we're losing that money in that period of time. So
Yeah.
definitely, I think this is an important factor which needs to be considered. Over to you, Neil.
Yeah, so we'll move on to the next question, which I think we're talking about just how you create the space for yourself in your own world, both personally and professionally. And I've wondered, as you've adapted to life there, what does making space mean to you, as in both in terms of the interior design aspect professionally, but also in terms of yourself, as in terms of identity and confidence and leadership?
Well, that's literally my 20 years. You put it in a question, that's my 20 years view. So, staying here for 20 years, I learned a lot during the whole process. And what really was very important for me to understand how they think, how they work, how are small, small things done differently, how the language works. The articles, like you mentioned, it's something that I am still trying to learn. But all of it, 20 years put together, what was really important was that I maintained my Indian flexibility, because that is very important when you're running your own show or even working for a company that I did in the past, and achieved the German detailing. So, like, the Indian flexibility, that the flexibility, actually, there's a word for that in India. We call it jugaad, but I would say it is, yeah, it is the Indian flexibility, like always willing to try something new, always willing to go a little extra mile. And the German detailing, as to, not to miss out on anything, any small detail, because everything is important. Over a period of time, I made sure that I was always walking into every meeting with both these aspects. Reaching on time was never a problem in India. So that was not a problem for me. So being punctual, but being punctual in Germany works a bit more differently, because to be punctual doesn't mean that you show up exactly on time. You're ready for the meeting to start on time. So our 11 o'clock meeting is not an 11 o'clock meeting. You are there 10:45 to make it to the 11 o'clock meeting. So these are small things that I picked up, and I'm still picking up. I mean, planning small details, which I would have not thought much about. But yeah, it's all, and I managed to create a niche for myself. And most importantly, I embraced myself for the person I was. I was not trying to be a bit of this and a bit of that. I accepted that, yes, I am an Indian. I come from there, a woman of color from India. And now I'm here for 20 years, and I have become German. Some days I have a stronger Indian side, and some days I have a stronger German side. But like Pratik just said about having to go back to India, I would say we don't even have to go back to India to experience that, because we are a family of 4 with our kids. Times when we are talking to our kids, we all of a sudden start thinking like Indian parents, but they're German kids. And their reaction sometimes tells us, hey, you are doing it all right on your work front, but when it comes to home and the kids, you expect them to react like an Indian kid, but they aren't. So literally, this is an ongoing process. I managed to create a niche for myself in the professional front, and learning from several people on a daily basis. With every meeting, I'm trying to, and learn a bit here and bit there to kind of fine tune, because 20 years seems like long, but it isn't enough to learn more and more. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, go
your
ahead.
punctuality just took me back to my first meeting in Germany. And it was a 12 o'clock meeting, I still remember. And I arrived at 12 o'clock and we started like 12:03 or 12:02 or something. And he said that I was meeting a more traditional German, should we say, and he was saying, well, is your time more important than mine? I was starting late. And I hadn't even considered that I was late. I just thought I was on time because I walked in at the right time. But in future, I was always actually way before the move. So it taught me well. And like say, the direct feedback and that helps you in the future.
There is one small thing I would like to mention, which is something that I use for every phone call or every time I'm trying to talk to a client to organize a meeting. And they tell me that you don't need to specially drive all the way to us, If you have meetings in the vicinity, then you can, plan. I said, no, it doesn't matter. That's where me being an Indian comes in very handy for me. So they say, you mean you will drive all the way 400 kilometers just for this one meeting? For me, it is very, very small. I come from Delhi, a huge city with all the traffic and everything. Going from one end of Delhi to the other end sometimes took me 4 hours. So driving 400 kilometers is about 4 hours. Nothing, not a big deal. So I do that for a meeting, drive first thing in the morning, come in the evening, and they cannot seem to forget it ever. Every time I meet them, they're like, oh my God, how could you even do it? But that's me being an Indian. So it's super easy. 400 kilometers, nothing.
Nothing at all. And the point is, again, a small anecdote. I mean, we got many years back when we got married. The funny story is about punctuality. Our marriage happened exactly on punct on time, absolutely on time. And 80% of the people missed our marriage because they were expecting it to happen 3 hours later. So the punctuality part still remains as a cultural thing, which was not so difficult for us to adapt when we moved over here. But like Richa said, that's 10 minutes before became another challenge for us to realize that this is, and that's the same culture with the Japanese as well. I respect them well for the same. Like 10 minutes before, they would be already on the call, sitting, waiting for you. And you're like, oh my God. So every culture is so different how you adapt to it. But if you stick, like, for example, on this call also, we were sitting 10 minutes before on this call because we were trying to understand how this is going to go. So yeah, I think this is an interesting topic to cover as adaptability. Now, Richard, fortunately, unfortunately, this would be my last question or our last question, but we would love to understand, after Rich with an A, completing 5 years in this wonderful country and the way you have achieved things in your business, what would be your personal advice to all people, or I don't want to essentially say women, but all people of color or people who move from abroad? What would be your one advice that you would say, that would be my one advice to you when you come to a new country? Adaptability, how do you think they should adapt to it? What would be that one message for everyone who moves? Let's keep it to Germany. What would be your one advice?
Right. So that's a good question. And I think both Pratik and I, we came with that mindset. I think when you come to another country, you have to have a very clear mindset that you accept who you are. You are, in my case, that I am an Indian, I'm coming from India, accept and be comfortable in my skin that, yes, I'm an Indian. I might know the things and the way things are done in India, but I do not know how things are done in Germany. And the second part, and that is simultaneous. You cannot say that, one is bigger than the other. The second part, that you embrace the culture with a completely open mind. You do not doubt it. You do not question it. You do not criticize it. You accept it for the way it is. And I think this has been like a winning card for Pratik and me. Actually, I would say the two of us, that we've integrated. There is so much to learn, and 20 years is not enough. But yes, when there is an Oktoberfest, we both have our full clothes that you're supposed to wear. We are not spoiled sports. We go for it, and we're not faking it. We truly enjoy it. So there are small things that we have integrated into the system, and we try to understand. Some things I understand better, some things he understands better. And together we try to make sure that we have integrated 100%. And we've tried to pass on this value to our kids too. And that to me would be an advice for anybody who's wanting to settle down in Germany or any other country, that you have to embrace the culture and accept it and try to understand how things work there. They might work differently, but it works and you have to accept it. And above all, speak the language.
Yeah.
Speak the language. You make mistakes, but speak the language, because that's the mode of communication. That's what they understand best. And don't try to thrust the way things work back in your country, because they don't know that. And why should they? We have come to their country and we have to put in the extra efforts. I believe in it. It worked for me. It continues to work for me. And that would be my only message.
That's beautifully said. But you know what? I had to adapt to the culture. That was my first time. So I did attempt it and I did a wrong job, but I still existed. And now we wear it every year, of course, since the last 20
Yeah.
years. And there was no shame in accepting that. But it's absolutely true that you got to accept what it is. Keep your core values in sight, because your core
Definitely.
values are beautiful, but adapt and move on with that. Language part, I'm still struggling. I'm not going to lie. But the
Fun.
good part is the effort is there. I put in an effort to understand. I put in an effort to speak. I do not speak as wonderful as my wife, but I can still understand, still try to speak and get on with it. But it's just the effort which everybody appreciates. I mean, if somebody visiting us in India, for example, who's from Britain, like you, and tries to say a thank you in Hindi or tries to say hello in Hindi, that's good enough for us to understand that the person is respecting my culture, is adapting to my culture, and is giving more value to my culture. So I think that is a very good advice, Richa, that you have given, because that is a very essential part. When you have that wall saying, no, I'm here, this is what I'm going to maintain, this is what I'm going to do the way I do it, it's definitely not going to progress. So it's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the chat today.
Look forward to coming back some other day.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Take care.